Hello everyone, and welcome to your video on the quadratic formula. So first, before I start explaining when you would use the quadratic formula, let me just write it for you. It's pretty impressive looking. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is the quadratic formula. Doesn't that look cool? Yeah, very impressive. Okay, so the first question students often have is, do I have to memorize it? And the answer is no. Today, in this world of Google, the quadratic equation is a mere 0.03 seconds away. So no, you do not have to memorize it. However, we're going to be using it a lot, so you might wind up memorizing it accidentally. That's okay. All right, so what is the quadratic formula? Well, the quadratic formula is used whenever you have a hard-to-factor quadratic equation. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I give you this equation. 30x squared minus 30x minus 600 equals 0. Now you can see that this is a quadratic equation. There's your quadratic right there. And you can see that it's set equal to 0. But I bet that if I asked you to think of two numbers that multiply together to make negative 600 and add together to make negative 30, we would be sitting here for a very, very, very long time. One of the ways that you know that this is going to be a difficult equation is that the numbers are so big. Okay. Another way that you know is that this right here is what I call an ugly coefficient. A coefficient is just the number that comes in front of the letters if you have a term. And anything that's not a 1 is ugly. So ones or nothings, if it just started with x squared, that would be beautiful. But instead, it's got this big, ugly 30 staring at us. And that means that this is going to be a difficult to solve equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve it using the quadratic formula. So if you look at your quadratic formula, you'll see that you have lots of letters here. X, that's what we're solving for. That's this x right here. We're solving for that. B, A, and C are the other letters that we have. This first term, the first coefficient, that's your A term. This here in front of your second term is your B term, and your third term is your C term. Now, I will say you got to watch your negative signs, right? If it helps you, you can change this to plus a negative, and so then it's clearer that this is negative 30 is your B, and this could be plus a negative, so it's clear that negative 600 is your C. All right, so now if I were solving this problem using the quadratic equation, what I would do is I would write out my, I'll put it over here. I would write out my formula, but instead of these letters, I'm going to stick in these numbers. So first I have negative b. Okay, regular b is negative 30. So negative b will be positive 30. 30. Then I have the plus or minus sign. And then I have a square root sign, and underneath that I have b squared. My b, remember, is negative 30 squared. There's my squared. Minus 4 times a, which is also 30, positive 30, times c, which is negative 600. And I put that all over 2 times a. And my a, remember, is 30. So there is my quadratic equation for this with all the numbers filled in. Now, even though that looks impressive, all you have to do is do it step by step. So here it's going to be x equals 30 plus or minus, and then let's get serious about what's underneath here. Negative 30 squared is a positive 900 minus, and now I do all of this math, 4 times 30 times negative 600. And when I do that, I get negative 72,000. If you're subtracting a negative, that's the same as adding a positive, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to cheer with happiness inside because the more negative numbers I can get rid of, the better. And then 2 times 30, so that's 60 down at the bottom. So again, simplifying again, I get 30 plus or minus the square root of 72,900 over 60. And then I put the square root of 72,900 in my calculator, and I really hope that I come up with something cool. I almost never do. Almost always I get some funky, weird number that makes me crazy. But in this case, I get 270. So I have now reduced this ugliness down to this. So this means that x is going to equal 30 plus 270 over 60, or x is going to equal 30 minus 270 over 60. 30 plus 270 is 300. Divided by 60, do that math, you get a positive 5. Here, 30 minus 270 is going to give us a negative 240. Divided by 60 gives us a negative 4. So my solutions to this crazy problem are either 5 or negative 4. Okay, so wasn't that nice? So that maybe was easier. I mean, I realize it's a lot of number crunching, but it's not difficult. It's just basic arithmetic. Let's do another example. So let's say I have this problem. Let's say that I have x squared minus 9x plus 2 equals 0. So you see that I don't have an ugly coefficient here, so that makes me happy. But again, very difficult to think of two numbers that multiply together to make 2 and add up to equal negative 9. In fact, it can't be done. So we're going to have to turn to the quadratic equation. So the quadratic equation is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's a mouthful, but you can handle it. So now I'm just going to fill in these numbers. My a is going to be that invisible 1 there. My b is my negative 9. And my c is my 2. So let's fill in what we know. X equals, b is negative 9, so negative b will be positive 9, plus or minus the square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2. All over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay? All right, so now just crunch the numbers. X equals 9 plus or minus negative 9 squared is negative 9 times negative 9, which is positive 81, minus 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8, all over the number 2. So that means, I'll move over here, x equals 9 plus or minus the square root of 73 over 2. Now I look at that number, square root of 73, and I ask myself if I can reduce it. And the answer is no. So this is my final answer. 9 plus or minus root 73 over 2. Isn't that a ridiculously ugly answer for what does x equal? Yes, it is. And that's why we have the quadratic formula, because there's no way that we would be able to just think of that in our heads. Okay, we're going to do one more. I have to admit, I was very nice to you on this one. I was very, very nice. So we do have an ugly coefficient. We have 5x squared plus x minus 4 equals 0. So we have an ugly coefficient, and we're going to have a hard time thinking of two numbers that multiply together to make negative 4, but add together to equal positive 1. So we're going to need to use the quadratic formula. I know, you're wondering, when do you get to the nice part? Well, it's coming. So here's my a, that's my first coefficient. My b is my invisible 1 there. And my c is the negative 4. All right, so I'm going to write out the equation for you again. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's fill in the numbers that we know. B is 1, so negative b will be negative 1. See how you're just always flipping the sign of whatever that b is? Negative 1. Plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 4, 4ac, over 2 times 5, 2a. All right, so simplifying again, x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus, and then you do 4 times negative 4 times 5, and you get negative 80. And then I know that that really becomes plus a positive. And I put that over 10. I'm going to move over here again. So now I have x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 81. You starting to see how nice I am now? You didn't think I was really being nice, but I am. Negative 1 plus or minus 9, because the square root of 81 is 9, over 10. So my two options for x is going to equal negative 1 plus 9 over 10, or x is going to equal negative 1 minus 9 over 10. If it's plus, that's going to be an 8 over 10, which is going to reduce to 4/5. And here, I'm going to get a negative 10 over 10, which reduces to negative 1. So see, I was being nice to you. I have to say, though, usually you wind up getting weirdo answers with lots of square root signs in them. But for this case, since we're just learning, we have 2 easy examples and just 1 crazy one. All right, so that is the quadratic formula. A, B, and C, and a lot of number crunching. Good luck.